Welcome to this deep dive all about membership sites. And it's tailored just for you because it's based on a blog post that you shared. It's from blogwidow.com. And honestly, this recurring revenue model, it really caught my eye. I think this could be huge.
Yeah, it is a really interesting way to think about a business, you know.
Hmm.
Instead of always chasing those one-off sales, you're building a community. It's like you're building a group of people who are actually invested in what you're doing, and they're engaging with you over the long term.
So the blog post actually defines a membership site as a site that has like exclusive content or services, and it's behind a paywall. So basically, you have to pay to get access.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it's got to be a lot more than just putting up a sign that says members only, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
the real key here is that you have to offer something that is so valuable that people are like, okay, I'm willing to pay for this. It can't just be any old content. It's got to be something that they really see as an investment, not
Mhm.
just a one-time purchase.
I like that. You're making me think of it like instead of buying a single book, you're getting access to a whole library, and it's constantly growing, and it's curated just for you.
That's a really good way to put it. And the cool thing is that this model, it isn't just for like big companies selling online courses.
Mm.
The blog post actually mentions all kinds of creators who could use this model. Writers, podcasters, even entire communities.
Hmm.
Yeah, it really is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. And for you, what do you see as like the biggest potential for membership sites, especially since you're so passionate about education? Like, what could this do for the world of learning?
I mean, imagine a platform where you don't just get like high-quality content, but you also can actually connect with other people who are learning the same things
Mhm.
and get direct feedback from experts. It could be a total game changer for how we all learn.
Yeah, totally. And speaking of community, that's something that really jumped out at me from the blog post. It seems like it's one of the key benefits of this whole model. Even beyond the recurring revenue, it's that community aspect. What do you think?
Oh yeah, it's a huge advantage when you can create that feeling of belonging, you know, where people feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. That's when members become more than just customers. They become advocates. They're actually invested in seeing you succeed. And you just don't get that with traditional sales.
And do you think that having a really strong community actually makes it easier to grow a business?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. As your community grows, your workload doesn't necessarily increase at the same rate,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you're not creating a new product for every single sale. Instead, you're just adding value to a platform that benefits everyone. And with a steady stream of new members coming in, you can actually start to forecast your income, which is really cool when you think about it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm definitely starting to see how this model could offer like some real stability and freedom. It could really change how someone runs their business. But let's say somebody's completely sold on this idea and they want to jump right in. Well, the blog post mentions a bunch of platforms: MemberPress, Kajabi, Teachable, Patreon, Thinkific. It's kind of overwhelming, to be honest. Where do you even begin?
Yeah, it is a lot to take in. The good news is that each platform is kind of geared toward different needs and goals. So for someone like you who's really passionate about education and building a strong community, Teachable could be a great starting point.
Okay, Teachable. Interesting. So, what is it about Teachable that makes it so well suited for educational content?
So first of all, it's known for being super user-friendly, even if you're not like a tech whiz.
Hmm.
You can easily create courses and structure them, and even drip content to keep students engaged. And they even have a feature where you can award certificates. Plus, Teachable has all these really cool features for actually building that community. Like you can have discussion forums, you can do live Q&A sessions, all that good stuff.
Hold on, you said drip content. What exactly does that mean?
Oh, good question. Drip content is basically just this idea that you release content gradually instead of dumping everything on your members all at once. Imagine starting a course and they just give you every single lecture, every assignment all at once, right? It'd be way too much.
Oh, yeah, for sure, totally. I would be so overwhelmed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with drip content, you're creating more of a structured learning journey.
Yeah.
You reveal new information, new challenges, new resources, but at a pace that actually keeps people motivated and engaged.
So it's more like you're unfolding a story chapter by chapter.
Exactly. And it kind of helps to build that sense of anticipation too. Gives people time to actually digest and apply what they're learning.
Gotcha. So it sounds like Teachable is a really strong contender for anyone who wants to create a learning-focused community. What about these other platforms, though? What makes them unique? Like, why would someone choose MemberPress over Teachable or Kajabi or any of these others?
Okay, let's do a quick rundown. MemberPress. that's a really powerful plugin for WordPress. So it gives you tons of control over like who has access to what content and how you manage your members. It's ideal if you're already comfortable with WordPress and you want to get really hands-on with the customization.
So MemberPress is for the people who like to tinker under the hood, whereas Teachable is more like plug and play.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Now, Kajabi is a whole other animal. It's a really comprehensive platform that handles basically everything from website creation to email marketing. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for online businesses.
Wow, that's pretty comprehensive. So would you say it's as user-friendly as Teachable?
Hmm. Kajabi definitely has a bit of a steeper learning curve, but it's super streamlined once you get the hang of it.
Hmm.
So it's great for entrepreneurs who want to manage their entire online presence all in one place, you know?
So someone who wants all their tools in one toolbox,
Hmm.
and they don't mind a bit of a challenge.
Exactly. Now let's talk about Patreon. So unlike these other platforms, Patreon is really focused on building those direct relationships between creators and their biggest fans. So it's really popular with like YouTubers, podcasters, musicians, artists, anyone who wants to offer exclusive perks to their most loyal supporters, you know?
So Patreon is less about like structured courses, and it's more about nurturing those super fan connections.
You got it. It's about rewarding those people who are really, really into your work with behind-the-scenes content, early access to things. And it gives them a way to directly support the work that you're doing.
That's a cool approach. Okay, last one. What about Thinkific? How does that fit into all of this?
Thinkific is actually pretty similar to Teachable in that it's really focused on online courses,
Yeah.
but it offers even more flexibility when it comes to designing your membership tiers and customizing that learning experience. So it's another strong option for people who want to build a membership site that's centered around learning, you know?
Okay, so to recap, we have MemberPress for the tech-savvy people who love to customize. We have Kajabi for the folks who want an all-in-one solution. We have Patreon for building those superfan relationships. And then we have Thinkific, which is another great option for courses and memberships. Wow, that's quite a range.
It really is. And with all these fantastic platforms, the blog is really careful to remind us that results are going to vary. Like no platform could just magically guarantee your success, right?
Yeah, they definitely emphasize that there are no shortcuts. Like, you really have to put in the work. You have to build those genuine relationships with your members, and you have to create content that actually provides value. But I'm wondering, how do you actually translate that into a strategy?
That's a great question. And it's something that we should definitely unpack further. But first, I think it's important to step back and just look at the big picture for a second. What's really interesting here is that the success of a membership site often hinges on factors that go way beyond the platform itself. You know, it's about understanding your audience, it's about making compelling content, and it's about nurturing that sense of community that we were talking about.
So the platform is really just the vehicle, but the real magic happens in how you use it to connect with your people.
Exactly. And that's what makes this model so exciting. It's not just about selling access, it's about creating something that's truly meaningful and sustainable.
Okay, I am super intrigued, but I have to admit, it feels a little daunting, you know? There's so much to think about. So where do you even begin to build a successful membership site? Like, what are the first steps?
Well, that's where having a clear roadmap comes in handy, and that's exactly what we're going to dive into next. We're going to break down those key steps involved, from choosing your niche to figuring out your content strategy.
Awesome. I am ready to get strategic. Let's dive in.
All right, let's do it. So before we move on to that roadmap, I'd love to hear your thoughts on something we touched on earlier. You know, the blog really emphasizes building those genuine relationships with members
Yeah.
and creating content that's actually high quality. What resonates with you about that?
I think it really gets to the heart of why membership sites are so different from just like a typical subscription service. You know what I mean? It's not just about churning out content for the sake of it. It's about building trust. It's about offering something truly valuable.
Exactly. It's about making people feel like they belong, like they're understood, like they're supported. So how do we actually translate that into a strategy, you know? Well, the first step, according to the blog, is identifying your niche.
Okay, niche. I feel like that's one of those business buzzwords. But it basically just means finding your target audience, right? Like figuring out who you're talking to. But how do you narrow it down? How do you find that sweet spot where your passion and your expertise actually meet a group of people who are ready to learn from you?
Yeah, great question. It's all about finding that intersection,
Yeah.
you know, where your unique skills and knowledge that you have, they overlap with a group of people who have a shared interest or a need. Think about it this way. What are you really passionate about teaching or sharing? And who would benefit the most from that knowledge?
So it's not just about picking a topic that's like popular or trendy. It's about finding something that you're genuinely excited to share and
Yeah.
something that aligns with your strength.
Right.
What?
Exactly. And once you've got that niche figured out, the next step is to create a content strategy. So this is where you're deciding what kind of content are you going to offer, how are you going to deliver it, and how is it going to provide value to your members over time.
So the blog post mentioned drip content as a technique for keeping members engaged. I feel like we could unpack that a little bit more. What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, for sure. Drip content is all about releasing content gradually. Instead of just like overwhelming people with everything all at once, imagine if you were taking a course and they just dumped all the lectures, all the assignments, all the resources on you on the very first day. It'd be too much.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I would be totally paralyzed. Like, where do I even begin?
Right. So with drip content, you create more of a structured learning journey. It's
Yeah.
like you're revealing new information, new challenges, new resources, but at a pace that keeps people motivated and engaged.
So it's about creating a rhythm, right? It's like building anticipation, giving people time to digest and apply what they've learned.
Exactly. And it helps create that feeling of momentum and progress too, which is so important for keeping people engaged over the long term. Now, another thing to think about with your content strategy is the format. Like, are you going to offer video lectures, written articles, downloadable resources, quizzes, or like a mix of everything?
It seems like there's so much room for creativity here. Like you could really tailor the format to your niche and the kind of learning experience that you want to create.
Absolutely. It's all about finding what works best for your audience and your content. So, for example, if your niche is something really visual, like let's say visual arts, you might lean more heavily on video tutorials and demonstrations. But if your niche is writing, then maybe you'd offer writing prompts, critique sessions, downloadable templates.
So it's about matching the format to the content and how people actually learn best, right?
Exactly. And don't forget about interactive content too. Things like quizzes, polls, challenges, group projects. These can really help people engage with the material more actively and with each other.
That actually reminds me of something else the blog emphasized, which was community building. They really seem to think that's crucial for making a membership site successful.
And they're right on the money with that. Building a strong community can make all the difference. It's like you're transforming your membership site from just a passive content library into this vibrant hub of connection and shared learning. Okay, I'm sold. But how do you actually build that community? What are some practical strategies that people can use to bring their members together? There's so many creative ways to do it. You could host live Q&A sessions, for example. So that way members can actually interact with you in real time, and with each other. You could also create private forums where people can connect, they can share their work, they can support each other's progress, that kind of thing.
I love those live Q&As. It's like bringing that classroom experience online,
Yeah.
where you can answer questions on the spot. And there's that space for like spontaneous insights and discussions.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of just acknowledging your members and celebrating them, highlighting their achievements, sharing their stories, making them feel seen and valued. That goes a long way in building loyalty and fostering that sense of belonging.
It's about making people feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves, right? They're not just consuming content. They're actually contributing to a shared experience.
You got it.
Yeah.
And that's really where the magic of a membership site lies.
Mm.
It's that shared experience. But even with the most amazing content, even with the most thriving community, we can't forget about the business side of things, right?
True. We can't just ignore the financial part of it. So the blog post mentioned different pricing strategies, but it didn't really go into detail. What are some of the key things to consider when you're setting membership fees?
That is a great question. And it's definitely where things can get a little tricky. You want to find a price point that feels fair to your members, right? But you also need to make sure that it's actually sustainable for your business. There's no one-size-fits-all answer here, but there are some key factors to consider.
Okay, so what are some of those factors? What should we be thinking about when we're trying to figure out how much to charge?
The first thing is the value that you're providing.
Yeah.
What are people actually getting in return for their investment? Are you offering exclusive content, personalized feedback, access to a community?
Yeah.
Or is it like a combination of all of those things?
The more value you pack in, the higher you can potentially set your price.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you also have to be realistic about what your audience is actually willing to pay.
Yeah.
Think about their income level. Think about the perceived value of similar offerings in your niche. And think about their overall budget for learning and development.
Yeah, you don't want to price yourself out of the market, right? But at the same time, you don't want to undervalue yourself and all the work that you're putting into creating this amazing experience for people.
Exactly. It's all about finding that balance.
Hmm.
And, another thing you could do is offer different membership tiers. So you could have different levels of access, different benefits. That way you can cater to different budgets and different needs within your audience.
That's a really smart approach. It gives people more options
Yeah.
and it allows them to choose the tier that actually aligns with their goals and their budget.
Exactly. And remember, pricing isn't set in stone. You know, you can always adjust it over time based on the feedback that you're getting from your members and just the overall performance of your site.
So it's like an ongoing process. You're always learning and tweaking your strategy based on what's working.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that building a successful membership site, it takes time and effort. It's not like one of those get-rich-quick schemes. It's about building something meaningful and sustainable over time.
So it's a marathon, not a sprint.
You got it.
Yeah.
It takes patience, it takes persistence, and it takes a genuine passion for your niche and your community. But the rewards can be incredibly fulfilling.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. It's not just about setting up a website and collecting those membership fees. It's about crafting a valuable experience for people. It's about building a supportive community.
Yeah.
And it's about nurturing that relationship with your audience over the long haul.
Exactly. And that's what makes the membership site model so powerful. It's about creating something that benefits everyone involved. It's a win-win for you and your members.
I love that. It's about finding that alignment, right, between your passion, your expertise, your business goals, and the needs and aspirations of your audience.
You nailed it. So before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to get your take on something that really stood out to me in the blog post. They talk about the importance of niching down even further once you've kind of identified your broader target audience.
Niching down even further. I'm not sure I follow. What do they mean by that?
So it's basically about getting even more specific with your focus within that niche that you've already chosen. So for example, let's say your niche is teaching people how to play the guitar. Well, you could niche down even further by focusing on a specific genre, like blues guitar or classical guitar, or maybe even a specific technique, like finger picking.
Oh, I see. So it's about finding that sub niche within your broader niche where you can really excel and offer something truly unique and valuable, right?
Exactly. It's a way to stand out from the crowd. It's a way to attract a highly targeted audience. And it's a way to position yourself as like the go-to expert in that specific area.
So it's like becoming the big fish in a smaller pond.
Exactly. And it's a really powerful strategy for building a successful membership site. When you focus on a smaller, more defined audience, you can tailor your content. You can tailor your community. You can tailor your marketing efforts with way more precision.
That's so interesting. It kind of seems counterintuitive at first. But I can see how it would actually make your efforts more effective and make your message resonate more deeply with people.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it allows you to build those deeper relationships with your members too, because you're all united by that shared passion for this very specific area of interest.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued by this idea of niching down further. It's something I'll have to think about more as I start to develop my own strategy.
I think it's definitely worth exploring. It can really be a game changer. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from choosing a platform to figuring out your content strategy to building that sense of community. But what about the actual launch? How do you get your membership site out into the world, and how do you start attracting those first members?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like all this planning and strategizing, it's got to lead somewhere, right? How do you actually make it happen?
Well, that's a great question. And it's what we'll dive into right after this. We're going to explore all the key steps involved in launching your membership site and building that momentum in those crucial early stages.
Awesome. Let's do it. I'm ready to launch. Okay, so we're back and we're finally ready to tackle the launch. I have to admit, I'm feeling a little bit of everything right now. Excited, nervous. It's like all this planning is about to become real.
It is a big moment for
Yeah.
sure. But, you've done all the hard work. You've got your niche, you've got your content strategy, you've thought about community. Now it's time to actually share it with the world.
Okay, that does make me feel a little better. But where do we even start? Like, how do you get those first members to sign up and how do you create that initial buzz?
Well, think of it like this. You're throwing a party, right?
Mhm.
You wouldn't just send out these generic invitations and hope that people show up. You'd want to make it personal. You'd want to highlight what makes it special. You want to get people excited to come.
I love that analogy. Okay, so how do we personalize the invitations for our membership site launch?
It all starts with understanding your audience, right? Like, where do they hang out online? Are they on social media? Do they read certain blogs or forums? Are they part of any online communities that are related to your niche?
So it's about meeting them where they are, not just expecting them to magically find us.
Exactly. And once you know where they are, you can actually tailor your message to speak directly to them.
Hmm.
What are their pain points? What are they struggling with? What are they looking for? And how can your membership site help them achieve their goals?
So it's about showcasing the value, right? Showing them how this can actually make a difference in their lives.
You got it. And don't be afraid to get creative. Maybe you offer an early bird discount, or you host a webinar, or you team up with other creators in your niche to cross-promote each other's stuff.
I'm realizing now that this launch phase is so important. It's not just about getting people signed up. It's about creating that energy, that momentum.
For sure. And you know what? Those first members who join, they're like your pioneers.
Yeah.
They're your biggest champions. Treat them well,
Yeah.
get their feedback, involve them in shaping the community. Their enthusiasm is contagious.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you're building something together from the ground up.
Exactly.
No.
Now, once you've launched and you have those first members, how do you keep them engaged? How do you make sure they're getting value and coming back for more? And how do you encourage them to spread the word?
It feels like it's more than just delivering the content, right? It's about nurturing those relationships and making sure that the community is thriving.
You're absolutely right. Stay in touch with your members regularly. Send out email newsletters. Participate in the community forums. Host those live Q&A sessions.
It's like tending a garden, making sure everything has what it needs to grow.
Perfect analogy. You got to water them with fresh content. You got to give them sunlight with encouragement and recognition. And sometimes you got to prune away any negativity or anything that's holding the community back.
So it's an ongoing process of care and attention. But what about those times when things don't go exactly as planned? Like, what if people start canceling their memberships? Or what if engagement starts to drop off?
Well, that's where resilience comes in,
Yeah.
and adaptability. Don't be afraid to experiment. Get feedback from your members, and be willing to change things up. Maybe you need to adjust your pricing. Maybe you need to tweak your content. Maybe you need to come up with some new ways to get people interacting.
So it's a constant evolution. It's like
Yeah.
you're always learning and growing and adjusting to the needs of your community.
Exactly. Building a successful membership site is a journey, not a destination. You embrace the challenges. You celebrate the wins. And you never stop looking for ways to make the experience better for yourself and for your members.
Wow, this deep dive has been incredible. We've covered so much ground, from the basics of membership sites all the way to launching and growing a community. What would you say is the most important thing we've learned today?
For me, it all boils down to genuine connection. It goes beyond the content. It goes beyond the platform. It goes beyond the marketing. It's about building real relationships with your members and creating a space where they feel valued, supported, and inspired.
Couldn't agree more. It's about so much more than just money, right? It's about building something together that everyone benefits from.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this model so powerful. It can truly transform businesses and communities alike.
Well, this has been an amazing journey. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with me. I feel so inspired, and I'm ready to get started building my own membership site.
That's amazing to hear. And remember, we're always here to support you along the way.
And to all of you listening out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of membership sites. We hope you've learned a ton and that you're feeling inspired to create something amazing. And remember, keep those curious minds humming. There's a whole universe of knowledge out there just waiting to be explored. So until next time, happy learning. And don't forget to bring your own sources for our next deep dive. Who can't wait to see what fascinating topics you'll bring to the table.